Welcome back to the channel, guys. So I was doing a 38-hour print on this CRX. Was printing a piece for an RC car and ended up smelling something funky. So I went downstairs, opened up the door, and sure enough, we got some thermal dead runaway. This thing took off to about 160 C. It ruined my magnetic build platform. Ruined everything I had on it. Obviously the print melted back to it. This thing was screaming hot. Shut it down. When you powered it back on, the SSR would activate the bed instantly. So that's obviously telling me there's an SSR failure. We're going to flip this sucker over and see what happened. Let's get after it. Alright guys, we are back. We got all these screws out of the bottom cover. This is the pile of them here. All Phillips screws go all the way around here. Nothing else holding the panel on. So we got the panel off, and sure enough, look what we have. SSR failure. Total meltdown. So let's pull this sucker off and see what she's actually looking like, but it ain't looking good. She's looking awfully toasty. So we'll get some close-ups of that and we'll get this repaired. Be right back. Alright, we got the SSR off. There's a ground here that goes to the base of the SSR, your bed wires and your control wires to your board to activate the SSR. The SSR came completely off the base plate. As you can see here, look at this. I'd say that FET had enough. I think it was done dealing with the heat. I have no idea why there's no heatsink on this thing. Really should be. SSRs need a heatsink. I mean, that's how they work. They conduct heat. So let's have a look at the unit too. Look at this thing, boys. Oh my god. This thing was a cooking. She was a melting. Big time. So, this is a 40 amp SSR. I am going to order a 100 amp SSR, and I am going to CAD design and machine a heatsink to fit in this case with the SSR. I'm going to mount a fan on it, and hopefully this is a thing of the past. TH3D knows about this situation. He sees it a lot. He recommends going to a MOSFET, which is definitely not a bad idea. He sells a very large MOSFET to control the bed. He also sells the wiring kit to make it happen. So if you don't want to use the SSR, go right back to the MOSFET. Give Tim at TH3D a call. So let's hit CAD. We'll design a heatsink, machine it, and we'll get this thing back together. So let's hit the computer. Okay, we're over at the CNC. We got our stock loaded up. We have our cam loaded into the computer, and we have our first tool zeroed out. So basically, we are going to start with the drilling process, and we're going to jam this SSR heatsink out. Let's do it. guys. Nice, beautiful heatsink. SSR will mount on this side, and fan will mount on this side. Should keep it cool. Awesome. Looks good. Let's get her in the printer. Alright, now that we got our heatsink, this is the heatsink I made. The original intention was to have these go over the lugs in the case. Didn't work out the way I wanted it to. There is not enough room to mount the fan on the underside when you flip it over. There's just, the standoffs on the case aren't tall enough. Didn't really do a bunch of measuring on that, so that was my bad. But what I'm going to do is just mount it like this with the fan on top. This fan is going to go right here. Hopefully, you know, this will reach the board, and we'll use one of the auxiliary ports or extra fan port to power it. Here's the original SSR. Here's the new 100 amp SSR. You can see it's much shorter, so that actually is going to work out in my benefit, the way the bracket has to go, the heatsink. Something I picked up on Amazon. It's SSR 100DD, DC SSR. You can tell the bottom plate here. Look at the thickness in the bottom plate. Much different, much different. So this should serve us well. And being 100 amp, this should deal with the load much better than this original 40. So let's get the fan mounted here. Very simple. Some M3 screws, and we need a bit. We're just going to screw this baby in. I'm sure the heatsink alone is going to help a bunch. Adding the fan is just an extra precaution. We don't need any kind of failure like that again. I believe this is only on the version 1s. The version 2s are supposed to come with thermal runaway already activated in Marlin. I am not sure how many of these version 1s left the factory without that being set up. So something to keep in mind, the CR10S-PRO and the CRX both use these 24 volt SSRs. So definitely keep an eye on that, guys. Alright, we got our fan mounted up. Looking good, looking good. Obviously we could use some shorter screws, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. So the SSR will mount on there like this, and then all go into the case, right back on the factory lugs, factory ground, right back where it was. So let's get it installed. One thing to note, obviously, using longer screws than the factory ones. Factory ones are quite short, as you can see here. These are the longer ones that I'm going to put in. And our wires will reach our board. We will use a port over here on the board. This reaches fine. Standard 40 by 40 fan. Get this last screw in the tower. Tighten this baby up pretty good. That's nice. That's what we like to see. Let's run our fan wire over here for now, just get it out of the way. If it would cooperate. Of course not. Why would it? And then we are going to get our power back to our board, or our bed. You can pull the cover off of these ones, that's a nice little touch. Get these babies loosened up. Obviously our bed wires. This one is going to go here. This one is going to go here. So we'll get that snugged up. And we'll get this one snugged up. Beautiful. Bedside is hooked back up. Now we go on to the activation side from the board. This fan wire is really aggravating me at this point. In the way, of course. Wow, it's crazy. Alright, so the SSR is clearly marked for the input side, positive and negative. So we are going to start with the negative. And then we are going to get the positive hooked up. Alright. It's a beautiful thing. So our SSR is mounted, our fan's mounted, our heatsink is mounted. This should help tremendously with what's going on. So hopefully we don't have any more meltdowns. I think it's, definitely worth trying at this point before I go and switching to the MOSFET. The MOSFET's not expensive, and it is a reliable electronic device. This is mechanical. So, I mean, it's bound to fail eventually, especially if you can't control the heat. Alright guys, now that we got all our wires hooked up, we just got to hook up our fan. I am going to use this port right here, auxiliary 1. This should be hot all the time, so that's where we're going to hook up our fan. Already has a JST connector, so it will plug right in. So that's where we're going for the fan for the heatsink on the SSR. So let's get that hooked up. Run our wires behind the ribbon cable. And we will make sure our polarity is correct. Plug that baby right into the board. As you can see right there, that's auxiliary 1. Right above the black board plug. So that's all hooked up. So now we just got to get power to it, and we will test this sucker out and make sure everything functions. Let's do this. We're powered on. Our fan is rocking and rolling right with the power switch. That's exactly what we want. As soon as the power's on, that fan turns on. It's a little noisy, but I'm not concerned about it. The power supply fan is way louder than this one, so I'm not too worried about it. It would be one thing if you were sleeping next to the thing, but I'm not, so I don't care. So rock and roll, man, we're working. So let's put some commands to this thing to heat the bed, and we'll see if the SSR and the board play nice. Let's do it. Gonna go for ADC. And bada bing, bada boom. Board calls, SSR is on. And we are moving heat. Bed is heating up correctly. So now let's just see if thermistor does a job, and we will call on and off at that ADC. So let's get it up to 80 and give it a second. It's definitely heating fast. One good thing about 24-volt bed. And you will see the light on the SSR turn off when the board isn't calling. We're at 64, 67, and climbing. So as long as we get to our target and that SSR shuts off, we should be in business. There you go. You can hear the power supply fan. Very loud. Way louder than this. And there it is. It's calling. So now let's just make sure the temperature isn't climbing. Let's continue to hold at 80. There it is, popped down to 79, and we have activation of the SSR. We're back to 80. SSR is off. Seems like we're all functioning the way we should. Absolutely, looking good, looking good. No big heat in the SSR or the heatsink. Slightly warm, nothing crazy. Maybe a little higher than room temp, which is about 68, 67 degrees, somewhere around there. Looks like we're in business, guys. Let's shut this thing down and get it wrapped up. One thing I had forgotten to mention, in the side panel, there is 2 screws on each side of the case. So they go in from this side and this side. You can actually see there's 2 holes there, 1 and 2. So there's 2 on each side. Don't forget those. So let's get this panel back on this machine. Like so, and we are going to get the screws back in this sucker. You will have to lift this panel. I'll usually get one started. That way the panel is hung. And I will go for the side screws next. The side screws are probably the most important to get lined up. If you do all the outside ones, most likely you're not going to get these to line up. So definitely keep that in mind. Anyway guys, I hope this video was helpful. And keep an eye on your CRX and your CR10S-PROs. Like I said, I'm not sure if this was something in the first versions. This is one of the original machines that originally came out, the CRX. This was before the CR10S-PRO. I purchased this when it first came out. I don't know, I'd have to guess 3 to 4 months worth of print time on it total before it started giving me problems. Obviously, it just happened. So 160C the bed got to. It was super smoky in that room, super smelly. I'm glad we got that sorted. So remember guys, keep an eye on it. Alright? Have a good one.